statements are alleged and should not be taken as definitive facts unless confirmed by verified legal or official documentation. This video is intended for informational and educational purposes only. We recommend you form your own opinions based on the evidence provided. This video does not disclose any private or sensitive information that is not already public. Do not go and harass anyone who is mentioned in this video. Warning: this video discusses gore, sadism, zoophilia, child material, child abuse, rape, doxing, harassment, and more. Viewer discretion is advised.
At the beginning of producing my documentary, a source told me about the now defunct GOREFLIX and the sketchy characters who hung out there. People shared content as extreme and as close to illegal as possible, and they openly asked for, posted, and discussed things like hardcore and sadism. I remember asking this source whether I should create an account to conduct interviews, and he said, and I quote, "I stole a body bag from the ambulance, you might as well put it on." After I met the man who called himself Fatal Attraction, that almost felt like foreshadowing. I'm no stranger to dangerous criminals not seeming the type, and I know that happens so much it's cliche. But Fatal, to me, appeared to be exactly who he was. He was volatile, obnoxious, violent, and predatory. I'd observed him even before my interview with him, and others had even warned me about him. He'd even messaged me when I first created my Q&A thread on GOREFLIX asking if I was Tethys. I interviewed him one-on-one when it became clear to me that not only was he a well-known member of the site, but that he had also doxed Ripper. I remember he was very aggressive, not necessarily toward me, but just in general. And he bragged openly about doing illegal things such as threatening people's families, doxing, and submitting false tips to the FBI. He'd even admitted to wanting to fly down to intimidate and possibly hurt Ripper's family, which would be all or mostly people who had nothing to do with his crimes. Even though he stated he was passionately against pedophilia, he seemed motivated by personal sadism to a disturbing extent, and I couldn't help but think he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Directly after our interview, he said in the GOREFLIX chat, which he could tell that I was watching, that he wanted to fake being a journalist to gain access to crime scenes. My first thought after speaking to him was, if this is all stuff that he's willing to tell a journalist for a documentary on the record, what is he not willing to say?
Possibly around July of last year, when my channel was still fresh, I had decided to start working on a video covering Diabolus, a shock mixtape by the individual Ripper. I was a big fan of Tethys at the time, and I wanted to shed some light on Ripper, as learning about him was something that was pretty shocking for me at the time. I was surprised few people were talking about him on YouTube. I had expressed a difficulty finding this video when an individual contacted me, not only saying he had Diabolus and could give it to me, but saying that he even knew the guy who doxed Ripper. He gave me this guy's telegram and I ended up contacting him. He ended up being Fatal Attraction.
On the 25th of December, 2022, I uploaded my video about shock mixtapes. It was my first video I consider to have done well. Comments were flooding in for the first couple of days after the video's release, and I was very happy with the small community that was starting to form. I was responding to as many comments as I could in order to up the engagement, which led me to respond to an account called Jasmine. This account left many comments, but one of them was saying how I should cover more disturbing mixtapes, such as Amber Alert or Scream. He left a lengthy comment detailing how he came across SB and spoke of how it wasn't lost media like many were apparently saying. He said it was a mixtape by Ripper. It wasn't, who was a controversial figure in the gore community. He had a clip of the intro of SB, and asked if I had a Discord account, where we could discuss SB and other mixtapes further. He gave me his Discord, and then we got in contact.
This video is meant to detail the crimes of Fatal Attraction. This video is a timeline of events, starting from when Tethys met Fatal to now. This video served the purpose of detailing what happens when the depraved individuals of the internet get the attention they so desperately sought. This video is also made for you, Nathan. It's time to see what you have done with this video as a mirror.
On the 29th of December, 2022, Fatal got in contact with me on Discord under the username ScaryNate. He first sent a clip from SB showing footage of dead children under an orange cloth or blanket. I told him that I was going to make a video about the dark side of shock mixtapes, like the Collective and Ripper. The Ripper topic began to expand, so I decided to make 2 separate videos. We spoke more on the topics, and he ended up asking where I was from. I told him, and he said that he was from Oregon. He said that he spoke to Ripper briefly to figure out more about him, which didn't lead to much. However, this'll be brought up again later. I continued to ask about things relating to the Collective and their mixtapes, and he kept providing any information he had. He brought up that he messages me at late times because he works a graveyard shift, so he likes to not work and instead talk to people on his phone. Ripper was a common subject of discussion between Fatal and I. Ripper was a perplexing and interesting case of a disgusting person tainting the internet more than it already has been, so he was worthy of this discussion. So when Plagued Moth posted his video about how Ripper was identified, it was shocking to Fatal. Plagued Moth said that Ripper was Fergie, someone in the gore community who was widely disliked, but Plagued Moth was wrong. Fergie is his own weird case, but he isn't Ripper. Fatal and I spoke of the whole situation lots leading up to the release of my Ripper video, which would bring me the most attention I had gained yet. Over multiple months, he and I would continue to talk about a range of topics, but still usually tied to child gore in one way or another. I understand that we got into contact on the grounds of him having information about SB, but it seemed like it was more of an obsession than something he was looking into for vigilante justice. Further into our messages, he would ask how many fights I've been in. I just chose a random number for a lie, but he told stories. He said that he would say really absurd things to people in hopes it would rile them up to fight. I won't repeat what he would say, but you can read it. Just a bit later, he mentioned the group 764, a group of degenerates who extort kids into self-harm, killing pets, or other awful things. He sent a few pictures of things 764 had done. Then he got banned shortly after. That is when he reached out to me on his second account. Unfortunately, I do not have our messages on his second account archived. He deleted his account, and I guess I must have closed our DMs before I got to archive any of it, so I only have screenshots of messages he has sent in public Discord servers, which will be covered later. Anyways, back in June of 2023, I was on Reddit, like the obese loser I am. I saw a post on r/iceberg charts that was of shock mixtapes. The entire final tier of the iceberg was just of illegal compilations made by Ripper. I initially assumed that the iceberg was made by someone who had just heard of Ripper's mixtapes, knowing that they were shocking and illegal. But I had a weird feeling, so I checked the account of who posted it, user terrible camera 8051. When I scrolled through the posts very quickly, I noticed a post on the Eminem subreddit. It was a video of Eminem's first recorded video freestyle, with the video being linked from YouTube. The video was from the Jasmine account. I scrolled back up and noticed that there was a comment under a different iceberg post. He was mocking the original poster, saying his own iceberg was better. Not only that, but he decided to say I have seen everything in this too. Right in that comment he explicitly admits to have watched 5+ illegal mixtapes of CSAM. Not only that, but he had a more recent post titled Innocence Lost mixtape coming soon. To Catbark's links were attached. I didn't know what Innocence Lost was exactly, so I decided to click the first link, and was met with a video of a child being impaled by a stiletto heel. I clicked off and immediately confronted Fatal in DMs. He went online, then back offline, so I blocked him. For context, it's important you know what names Fatal goes by. Of course there is Fatal Attraction, but there is also ScaryNate and Obscure Gore Corner. If you see any of those in any screenshots, just know that it is all the same person. no matter how he talks about the other accounts, considering he would oftentimes speak of the other accounts as if they were different people, probably to avoid accountability. Anyways, a few minutes after I blocked him, I was messaged by an alt account of his. He was mad I didn't give him a chance to explain himself. Fatal said that he wasn't the terrible camera account, but that was obviously a lie. I explained that, whether or not the account was him, he shouldn't be associated with a pedophile. He said that, in order to take down Ripper, you'd have to go through murky waters, which according to him means watching child compilations. After more of him pleading, I ultimately sent a nerd emoji and blocked him. Thankfully, Fatal was too lazy to make another account to spam me with. For months, this was the last time I spoke to him. Around this time, I had seen a video by a subscriber of mine. It was about the worst shock video she had seen. I thought the video was well done, so I commented to show support. We got in contact to make a video which didn't end up getting made, but we stayed friends. Shortly after we got in contact, she started making a video about Ripper, more specifically his legal mixtape Diabolus, and she got in contact with Fatal Attraction to help make the video because he allegedly doxed Ripper.
As mentioned earlier, in around July of 2023, I had began work on a video covering Ripper. I know he's a bit of an annoying topic now, so my apologies. This video initially started as a breakdown of his mixtape named Diabolus. Prior of writing the script for the video, I had been asking how to get this mixtape and where I can find information about Ripper. This is when I was messaged by somebody on Reddit saying he can not only provide this mixtape to me, but get me in contact with the man that doxed Ripper, Fatal Attraction. I was still really new to everything. I was nervous. I remember being in class getting sent Diabolus by my contact. I felt so nervous, like I was doing something bad. I feel as if this was some sort of loss of innocence moment. Now that I had Diabolus, I would get home a few hours later and shoot a message to Fatal Attraction, asking if this was the right person. He would respond later that night, fairly paranoid, asking who I was, how I knew who he was, how I found him, etc. It was reasonable enough for me. I explained everything and I assumed he had calmed down. I would explain how I was making a video about Diabolus and I wanted him to tell me some things about Ripper. He got excited and agreed to tell me things about him. Before we got to talking in such a manner though, I would ask him if he was a pedophile, if it was safe for me to be around him. I was incredibly nervous, so I just wanted to know how I would approach conversing with him. He said he wasn't a pedophile and we would begin to keep contact for a while. The more he talked about Ripper, which was a lot, the more the focus of my video shifted towards being about Ripper rather than his mixtapes. He was incredibly ecstatic to talk about Ripper. The lengths he went to catch him were absurd, creating his own website and posing as a fan. It's one thing to be proud about successfully catching a pedophile, it's another thing to obsess with it and everything surrounding it. The sad thing about it is that Ripper wasn't even arrested, Nathan just scared him. As we continued to talk, he would express various examples of alarming behavior. He would shill his animal abuse mixtapes to me as if I would find them entertaining or pleasurable, in the same manner that he did. He would proudly label himself as a gorehound in regards to real life gore and not movie special effects. He would hyperfixate with any form of gore or violence. He would often spew rape threats or make comments about him raping those he disliked, and would often brag about his endeavors in doxing and swatting individuals. He would make me very nervous. Occasionally when speaking, he'd have random fits of rage when talking about those he disliked, getting himself angry, and every time this happened I'd have to calm him down or console him. I was a 16-year-old trying to console a grown overweight man with an animal abuse addiction. I couldn't talk to him without stroking his ego. I honestly didn't think he was bad at the time. I thought he was just this guy who was really in a shock jock humor and happened to be very on edge after doxing a notorious pedophile. I thought he just had issues. I've often found myself acting erratically in some of my poorer moments. I gave him the benefit of the doubt, which is something I'd grow to regret.
Back in around July of 2023 I started making a video that would end up taking way too long to make, my iceberg video. I asked my community what topics they would want to see on the video, and I got a comment from Beneath the Iceberg, a fellow content creator. We got in contact, and we further spoke about multiple topics that would then be discussed in the iceberg video. One of the topics was GOREFLIX. I had already heard of that godforsaken site, and everything I had heard was negative. BTIB told me she would be asking public questions on the website for her docu-series. I made an account using a temporary email, then went to the thread where she asked the question. There were some people in the thread assuming that the poster was me, so I decided to leave a reply of my own saying something along the lines of "Nah, that's not me." A few minutes passed, then I got a bunch of DMs on the website, which I didn't even know existed until that moment. I clicked on it, and what do you know? Fatal Attraction wasn't happy with me being there. Before I got to respond, he brought up Nate, who I still thought was a completely different person at the time. He was mad that I was probably going to discuss Nate in my upcoming iceberg video, which hadn't even crossed my mind as a topic for the video, because I forgot about who Nate was. Fatal brought up that I had talked to Nate via Discord, and although I thought it was suspicious he knew about that, it jogged my memory. I was basically trolling with Fatal in these messages, so I said that I was going to talk about Nate, even though I never had that idea. But I left it with me saying I don't care about him, so he didn't need to be worried about me talking about Nate, Fatal, or their associates, though to scare him, I still left a small remark at the end saying I was considering it. While all of that was going on, under his other alias Scary Nate, he was active in a few Discord servers, a notable one being AIT's server. The first message from him I could find was of him surprised that I was in the server, however he misspelled my name. That specific misspelling is one that I've seen from multiple people, but it's only guaranteed that Fatal would use it every time. Perhaps it's him mad at me, so he's not using my real username, or maybe he's just incompetent. Not only was he surprised that I was there, but he was also surprised that a Harry was as well. This Harry person was a GOREFLIX regular. The message right after that was him asking if anyone knew where he could find the Pandora's Box mixtape, allegedly created by a Carrera98. As of my knowledge, Pandora's Box was a mixtape of very violent child abuse and gore. It seems like he ended up getting his hands on the trailer of it, since he supplied it to another GOREFLIX user's catalog of extreme and rare mixtapes. Fatal continued to talk about things like SB, Pseudo Scorpion, and ED. Fatal was also saying the iconic edgy loser phrase "I've seen worse" when someone brought up Ogrish. Of course we all know that he definitely has seen worse, but it's still hilariously cringe to see people say that.
You may be wondering, what even is GOREFLIX? Well, it's obviously a gore site, but what made it different is that it was mostly a forum site. There were still posts of content, but most of the users were talking to each other in countless threads. Every gore site will have controversy surrounding its name, but GOREFLIX really should have had more than any other on the ClearNet, with many members paying homage to people like Ripper and even Lux, the man who distributed Peter Scully's creations. It wouldn't be too surprising to hear that the people on this website weren't that great either. With people like Love to the Core, for example, Love to the Core was a name that was paying homage to one of Lux's illegal websites on Tor. Lux had Hurt to the Core, a site specifically for hurtcore, so he made a less violent but just as illegal website called Love to the Core. A user on GOREFLIX must have known about that, as they decided to choose that name. According to multiple different people on GOREFLIX, the user admitted to watching CSAM, which, although terrible, isn't too shocking for GOREFLIX standards. Eventually, Love to the Core would make a GOREFLIX exclusive, where he tortured, raped, and then killed a cat. That wasn't enough for him though, so he then jerked with its guts. He did end up getting banned for that shortly after. Not only was Love to the Core on GOREFLIX, but so was none other than Ripper. There were multiple people pretending to be Ripper, some even given nicknames, but there's also the real Ripper. Ripper and the Ripper are not, the real Ripper, but Ripper is Dead was. Fatal Attraction was known for having doxed Ripper. Although it wasn't a complete dox, he found Ripper's IP. And then that's basically it. Using the IP, people found the schools closest to it, whereupon they trolled Ripper, saying that he used to go there, as Ripper was only 17 at the time. Although for a lot of Ripper's time on the site, he wasn't actively making mixtapes, just him being allowed to stay and interact with everyone else on there is flabbergasting enough. Another frequent of GOREFLIX was AlexZZL, who had a YouTube channel where he uploaded a documentary about NLF, No Limits Fun, Peter Scully's production company. The video he made contained detailed descriptions of some of Scully's creations. The descriptions are most likely originally written and read by AlexZZL. In the video, he put footage from DD. The footage itself was not illegal to view, as it was just footage of Lazille Magayo rocking the 18-month-old with her legs. As of my knowledge, that clip was posted onto Twitter by an infamous edgelord, Lusar, so there is a chance that Alex retrieved the footage from there. Either way, it's still disgusting to download that footage, let alone put it into a public YouTube video for anyone to see. He continued to dig his grave deeper by also putting a still from a different creation of Peter Scully's. This time, it was much more graphic and much more illegal. The video was reported and Alex had his channel taken down, but that doesn't mean the video itself never existed. Let's get back to talking about Fatal Attraction though. In August of 2023, a thread was made on GOREFLIX, a thread by none other than Fatal. At first, the messages in the thread seemed rather confusing, but once you read it, it makes more sense.
Lord, forgive me for what I do when the time comes. The question on legality/consensuality. I believe it's okay should this happen because she's stated she wants it. Worst comes down to it, if she refused to press charges, what would even happen? Nothing. The question on is it worth it? I would think so. I mean, when would an opportunity ever happen like this again? The question on morality. Morally it's sick and twisted and fucked up, but that doesn't bother me. The question on the audience. What would you all want to see happen to her? Kicking, biting, hitting, cutting. Let me know so I may please my audience should this happen in real life. What's that transcript have to do with this? She's 18. I'll try and refrain from killing her because that means the end of my road too, you know. If it happens on accident, I suppose I'll still put it in the video, but at that point I'll sell it so it would be the world's first snuff tape.
It seemed as though Fatal Attraction was setting up, or at least trying to set up, a snuff film type event for GOREFLIX. He found a user named Hexed Angel, who said that they were willing to give her address to Fatal, and they were going to meet up so that he could torture her on camera. He said that if he happened to kill her on camera, then, well, who cares? Because he was just going to sell it to make it the first real snuff film in history. Tethys found this suspicious, so he messaged Hexed Angel on Discord because they were already in contact. Tethys learned that this was just a very poor joke, a joke that many thought wasn't one. According to Hexed Angel, Fatal Attraction attempted suicide and she was somehow caught up in the middle of it. She said that Fatal Attraction didn't actually mean any of what he said, which could very well be true.
Even though that may have been a joke, we would end up learning more about the awful actions of Fatal Attraction. At this time, we had no confirmation that Scary Nate and Fatal Attraction were the same person. We thought that one of them admitted to watching illegal Ripper mixtapes, while the other was a psycho who didn't know what punctuation was. Well, there was some suspicion of if the two were actually the same person, so I reached back out to Hexed Angel. I saw that Scary Nate had a mutual friend, being Hexed Angel, so I asked if Scary Nate and Fatal Attraction were the same person. She said yes, and that was the final message in our DMs before her account was either banned or deleted. Fatal's Discord account wasn't gone yet, though. He was still Scary Nate on my Discord server, that no longer exists. On there he would say something every once in a while, usually just cringe single-digit IQ takes, like how a majority of Muslims are bombers, and how furries are worse than gorehounds. He would slowly message less, sending his last message on November 19th, 2023.
In November, I noticed that my comments section, and the comments sections of people I'd worked with, were suddenly getting spammed with threatening messages. This was, of course, by Fatal, who had found my videos after someone had posted them on GOREFLIX. I remember him specifically calling me a communist, which I laughed at because it was so random, but I think he meant comm girl, something that he's accused me of being several times for some reason. He was able to look up and find my exact address and he had threatened to send a SWAT team to my house, which Kaya thankfully talked him out of. Seriously, I can't thank you enough, Kaya. You're a real one for that. Then, through someone I was in touch with on Discord, he sent me a video of the beginning of what appears to be an electric chair execution, which then flipped to a picture of my house with Nazi symbols superimposed over it. The video also contained my address and the words, "Are you scared now? N-word?" I panicked, but thankfully, and unsurprisingly, Nate backed off after I didn't give him attention after that. Despite his gratuitous use of the N-word, Fatal Attraction is the whitest man ever. How I found this out was through a very stupid mistake on his part, which is how most sickos like him get found out. When Tethys called out Fatal's account in his iceberg video, Fatal immediately accused Tethys of doxing him and using his real name, despite Fatal being the one to put it out there in the first place. Now, is not at all a common name. In fact, the only person that I could find with that name was a middle-aged grandmother from Oregon. However, from her Facebook profile, I could see that Jasma had a nephew in his early 20s named Nathan. Fatal had called himself Nate several times before, so I decided to look into this person, who I soon was sure beyond a shadow of a doubt was him. He followed Scare Theater, who Fatal had said he was a fan of, on Facebook, and his mannerisms and general faux intimidation factor matched up. Yes, on top of his general creepiness, Fatal Attraction, now unmasked as then 22-year-old from Medford, Oregon, was not only willing to commit the crimes that he did, but he also tried to throw his aunt under the bus despite her having nothing to do with it.
Here's something that may have some relevance to Fatal depending on how you look at it. Around sometime in November, Fatal would disappear. I didn't really keep so much contact with him around this time, so I just assumed he had nothing of value to talk about. In December, I would be notified of something by the person who introduced me to Fatal. We'll call him Person 1. Person 1 would notify me that somebody is going around under the name of Chef Disgrace, sharing mixtapes and music containing audio or imagery from child sexual abuse material. Person 1 learned about this individual from a person known as Red Media. The three of us would make a group chat and begin trying to find out who this guy is. Asking around would eventually lead to Chef Disgrace making an announcement of sorts, using the same text-to-speech model as Tethys, threatening to spam various gore sites, one of them being GOREFLIX.
Live Gore moderators, listen closely. R3, I5. GOREFLIX moderators, listen closely. P2, E5.
Person 1 knew a guy. We'll call him Person 2. Person 2 knew one of the moderators of GOREFLIX. We'll call him Person 3. So we would add Person 2 and 3 explaining the situation. They join us in this investigation of sorts and briefly stop logins on GOREFLIX to reduce any potential spread of illegal material. Somewhere down the line, a mixtape creator would join. We'll call him Person 4. Chef Disgrace would continue to catch more wind of us, creating more announcements, threatening and taunting us. He'd make nods to Ripper, so we connected the dots and started thinking that it was him or a copycat. So then we tried to ask Fatal about Chef Disgrace, and he wouldn't answer for a few weeks. I would eventually pop into the group chat for the investigation and hear the group mentioning things about Fatal that I didn't know, and needless to say, it made me incredibly uncomfortable. I decided to keep my distance from him from now on. Nathan would come back and explain a situation to me that will be revealed later. He was incredibly paranoid, asking me if I said anything, pointing fingers at various individuals. I said that I had his back and he shouldn't worry. He would calm down and forward messages to me explaining the situation a bit. I would later find out that he obscured people and statements from these messages, and then he'd disappear again, giving minimal help with the situation. A lot of stuff happened with Chef Disgrace, but it ultimately ended in nothing. It was just a big couple-month-long period of extra stress that nobody needed. It eventually culminated in Person 2 sharing Ripper's school address in an attempt to scare Chef Disgrace if he was Ripper. We would then get a message from him saying that he would quit and come back in a year's time. He also dropped an animal abuse video which consisted of a teenager mildly annoying their dog. The time has passed and there's no sign from him or Red Media.
In November or December of 2023, a YouTube channel was made by Fatal. It was called Obscure Gore Corner, and it was in the works for a while. It was supposed to be a collaborative effort of many GOREFLIX regulars. By being listed in the video, you might think that everyone there is pedophilic, considering we know what we do about who they are associating with Fatal. However, it's important to know that at this time, no one knew anything about Fatal's worst wrongdoings. They just knew of his temper. Multiple people on that list, Coyote Chop included, never actually said they would even join the channel. Some didn't know that the channel was going to be made, so out of nowhere they saw that they were apparently on a project they've never even heard of. To those who didn't know about the creator of the channel, or those a part of it, they just thought it would be an interesting channel once it finally began uploading videos. A month went by. No uploads. Another went by too. In February, Fatal came back to GOREFLIX under the Obscure Gore Corner name, stating that he had been gone due to a DUI. However, looking up his court records shows no results for anything other than a civil family issue from when he was a child. A DUI would more likely than not show up on such a record. However, privately he'd previously stated that he had gotten raided for CSAM. In a group chat on Telegram, he was very upset about being raided, but don't worry, he gave the feds a bait phone. In most cases, giving law enforcement a bait phone implies guilt and is a crime in and of itself. Seeing as there's often a long time between a raid and an arrest in cases such as these, and seeing as raids don't show up on court records until further action is taken, it's more likely that his story about being raided for CSAM was true, and he was laying low until people forgot about it. So when people forgot about the CSAM raid, then he went back onto GOREFLIX to talk about this borderline illegal mixtape he almost made, either in reference to Antichrist, which he did make, or Pandora's Box, which was provably at least in his possession. There's reason to believe he made it, but nothing solid. Either way, he most likely lied about this DUI of his to cover up the much worse and much more accurate story of him being raided for CSAM. It was very late one night, so late that some may consider it the morning. Just got off the pound gaining grind, and was about to sleep. I picked up my phone, and saw a notification from YouTube Studio. I got a comment. Assuming it was either a supportive or bot comment, I didn't read it. Not immediately, at least. 5 minutes later the curiosity got to me, so I checked the comment, and saw it was from none other than the Obscure Gore Corner. I only got one notification, but 3 comments/replies were actually left. The first comment said Tethys lame. He responded to that reply right after, saying get rid of my comments. I'm not the type of guy to remove comments, so I just let his comments stay. I later noticed that he replied to another comment on my Ripper video. It seemed like Fatal was revisiting my catalog, as it's hard to dislike my content, even if you hate me as much as he does. He replied to a comment that said Ripper wasn't actually 17, although Ripper was at the time the video was made. Fatal's reply basically said that Ripper was indeed 17 at the time. Then he started rambling without proper grammar, the usual. Seriously, read this comment out loud, it's hilarious. He started talking about 764, and said that I couldn't go about researching that even if I tried. Does he know? Then he said that people in 764 or their offshoot groups were harassing him at one point, calling him and his wife. After I received those comments, I went to sleep, deciding it was better to deal with it later. Considering it was months and months since anyone last heard of him, it was an important moment, but Fatal isn't as important as my sleep. When I woke up, I brought it to the attention of Kaya. She brought up the idea of making a video to scare him, a video about him. I thought about it, but I didn't think it was quite the time for it. I took a look at the obscure Gore Corner channel to see if anything new was there. There weren't any new videos or posts of any kind, but I did see that he left a reply to a comment under his video. It was a reply to Steve's comment, before Steve actually learned who Fatal was. The reply was very long, and as usual had no punctuation, so it isn't too easy to understand, but I can summarize it here. Fatal complimented Steve's videos, then said that he sadly can't make any new videos, because they'd be too illegal. He explained that he was rated no thanks to Beneath the Iceberg and I painting him to be a pedophile, and spamming tip lines. For the record, no one spammed any tip lines. You were reported once, and got raided within the week, meaning they probably already had their eye on you. He complained about being doxxed, which isn't even what happened, so that's also kind of funny. He said that he was planning on making his channel similar to one of Plagued Moth's documentaries, which really says lots. Then he reiterated that he didn't like me, saying that I straight up bugged him. A bit less than a month later, I got a privacy complaint on my iceberg video. The timestamp provided of the part that violated privacy was the Jasmine chapter, so it was pretty obvious who sent the complaint. I edited out the portion in an attempt to keep the video up, but after I did, YouTube took it down completely for some reason. I screenshotted the complaint email and sent it to Kaya. Many weeks went by, and Kaya saw that someone joined her Discord server. It was none other than my woad Fatal. He got banned immediately and then left a comment on her YouTube video 2 days later. The comment wasn't hateful though. It was, "Hey Kaoti, how have you been? We should talk, long time no see." It was off-putting to see this man back again, but nothing we weren't already used to. After that comment was left, Kaya and I continued to discuss all that happened, which led to an important decision being made. If Fatal interacted with her or any of us one more time, then the video about him would be uploaded to YouTube.
In the midst of all that, around August 14th, Kaya contacted me on Instagram, saying that it was a matter that involved the safety of a child, and asked me if I had any information on Nathan. After we exchanged the information that we did have, we planned out a letter from me to a family member of his, warning her that he could be a danger to her child. I made sure to use an anonymous email and to tell this woman to not share this email with anyone, but soon enough, I got a reply from Nate back, asking who I am and why I'm contacting his family. I didn't reply and deleted the email account from my phone for my own personal safety, so if he ever contacted me again, I wasn't there to see it. In the meantime, Kaya and I continued compiling evidence.
While evidence, new and old, was being compiled to build a more cut and dry case against Nathan, he started commenting on various content creators' videos, usually insulting them or finding a way to insult another creator, specifically Tethys. Tethys would alert me of this. Nathan had a habit of being calm for a bit before having periods of being very angry and hyperfixating on an individual in a negative manner. I was afraid this was going to get worse. Oftentimes he had very little reasoning as to why he was mad at somebody, so I was afraid he was going to start not only another prolonged period of harassment towards Tethys and Beneath the Iceberg, but towards me. He eventually commented on a video of mine and joined my Discord. I panicked and banned him. I would begin to make a loose plan with Tethys. If Nathan was to contact me again in any sort of manner, I would make a video on him, showing a small amount of proof that we had against him, showing he had an involvement in the creation of Antichrist. Throughout the video, I'd insult him, throwing some personal insults as well to have him somewhat indirectly admit he was Nathan Jankowski if he had gotten especially mad or offended by the personal comments. Nathan never liked the attention. Anytime attention has been put on him for any reason, he panics and shuts down. If he ever contacted me, I would upload this video to get him off my back. Eventually, he'd contact me on Reddit, saying I doxed him, after I mentioned him on a Reddit post talking about the Antichrist. So, that was it. I uploaded the video on him and it got more attention than I expected it to. Nathan would respond, trying to pin several things on me and trying to defend himself. I would respond debunking several statements and he'd delete his comments and disappear once more. After the video's upload, several people would come out and speak about him, some mocking him, some revealing information about him, leaving him in the dirt.
Well, my name is Brendan Reviews, and we're in for one today. Tethys has called upon me to do a little segment about a particular person named Nathan Which. Well, listen up, Nathan. You are a slimy piece of feces that somehow slithered out of Mother Earth's ass crack. Oh god. To sum this up and further my case on why I feel this way, first off, there were 5 illegal mixtapes that you watched that were all pure CP. How do we know this? Well, on May 17th, he happened to admit to it on his terrible camera account on Reddit. Those mixtapes were none other than Wonderland, Candyland, 7 Deadly Sins, which was posted to an illegal website named Tabula, something like that. Trying to pronounce that is a waste of my time. But then there's also Run Rabbit and Cicada 3301, which are all mixtapes that contain the worst types of hurtcore in history. But not only this, you happen to get excited over this material in ways that no one ever should, to the point where you decided to create your fucking own. Yay, Nathan, you really know how to pick your role models, you absolute sick fuck. The mixtapes you're responsible for, Nathan, are the legal and illegal cuts of Antichrist, the mixtape, which the illegal one, by the way, contains CP. He also made ABS, which stands for Animal Body Snatchers, which is, of course, a mixtape where animals are abused and tortured, but also may contain bestiality? Because why not? If children are on the table, then clearly animals are too. But the real catcher is, what state do you live in again? Oh, that's right, Oregon, one of the only states where bestiality is illegal to view. Clearly a big brain move on your part, Mr. But we all know that the brain in there must be pretty small, pretty winded, and, pretty underdeveloped from all the drugs that you've done as well. I mean, you've even admitted to doing them, which I can assume they're probably the harder drugs, because if you think the other shit is okay, why wouldn't the harder drugs be okay as well? But, I digress. You even hinted at possibly selling them, which I get it, we all need money, but dude, at least be a prostitute first. Sure, that type of activity is considered illegal because it's literally payment for sex, but I guess that's better than the other sexual activity you're accused of. Let's talk about the unconscious. But you really don't care anyways. I mean, you can watch the previous stuff, do drugs, do the acts that you supposedly did with an. But you really had to stoop to the low of trying to buy the Toolbox murder audio from the FBI. Like, come on, you can't be serious. Honestly, it's still the torture of a minor, but with nothing to view. Do you get off to the screams? Seriously, you've even given the FBI false reports about people, which is another crime as well. But the cherry on top of the criminal and felony sundae is the burner phone that you gave the FBI when they raided your house in November of 2023. CP, sexual abuse, distribution of CP, false reporting, and even tampering with evidence. You really know how to do it all, don't you? Nathan, you are sincerely one of the lowest people I've ever had the displeasure of talking about. You are a sorry excuse for a human being that tries so hard to be edgy that Ripper and people like Peter Scully would even say you're a phony. You belong to no one, and instead of begging for attention, maybe you should be begging for forgiveness because nobody likes your sorry ass. Nathan, get some fucking help. Get some discipline. Find God. Anything other than this. Otherwise, I hope hell has a bed made up for you.
Though not many details can be given at the time, there is verified evidence that Fatal has committed sexual crimes in real life. The proper authorities have been contacted concerning this. After learning of all his crimes, we made an archive of everything we had on him. We took our findings to appropriate legal authorities, and hopefully they are handling it as they should.
Since we sent in the reports, we haven't heard anything from Nate. Whether or not he's arrested we don't know, but him being gone is definitely better than nothing, I guess. This video essentially tests to figure out what happened to him. If he's gone, there'll be no response. If he's free, he'll comment a few times, which he can do. This video was advertised on the subreddit we know he stalks most, and he is not blocked from commenting. If he feels the need to, he can comment, and that comment will be pinned and screenshotted. If he doesn't comment, he'll talk to some of his friends begging desperately for help. If his friends have any semblance of a level-headed mind, they'll know not to help the insane man, just like they have before. To the people who used to be associated with him, but cut ties after learning of his evils, thank you. You know who you are.
Nathan, you are a failure. Every aspect of your existence is misery.
Boo-hoo, I'm Nathan. I had such a hard life. I have to deal drugs and I jerk off to animals getting their dicks chopped off, all because my daddy left me. Everybody hates me for some unknown reason. I don't know why. I'm such a vigilante. Poor me, poor Nathan. It's Nathan against the world. For somebody so paranoid, it's absolutely absurd how you covered your tracks. At the age of 16, you directed me towards pedophiles for my 764 video, telling me that they weren't pedophiles. That was something I had asked you about in regards to them. You told me they weren't pedophiles. You knew I was naive about the subject and that I looked towards you for help, not knowing how deep this subject was, yet you still directed me towards them. You can judge everyone in this community for enabling me to be here at such a young age and not saying much about it, or anything at all. But nobody, not a single fucking person ever promoted their animal abuse mixtapes to me. Not a single fucking person sent me towards pedophiles acting as if they were stand-up people. Not a single fucking person has ever proudly titled themselves as a gore hound in regards to actual gore. Not a single person has told me about their plans to make a barely legal mixtape. You are not a vigilante. You have done nothing for nobody. Fuck you, Nathan, you miserable waste of air.
Nate, to quote Prison Break, your parents must be so proud of you, man. I mean, hitting the trailer park trifecta: racist, pedophile, and stupid. I'm struggling to even find the words, and I'm not even gonna try to waste the brainpower or oxygen to search for them. Just know this: I've read thousands of court documents about people like you. You're not special, and I don't know what makes you think that you're not gonna face consequences for your actions. You're going to go down the same way the rest of them do. Almost every single time, degenerate pedophile groups fall apart because scum like your ilk isn't loyal, and if you think your fate will be any different, you're even stupider than I thought you were. Again, scum isn't loyal.
It's honestly shocking to me that we first talked more than 2 years ago now. You were such a big fan of my content that you made up your own term for it. You were the first Tethys, and what a notable one too. You always wanted to help with my videos. You wanted me to join the Obscure Gore Corner channel too. It's funny how all of this turned out, with you being one of the biggest losers I've spoken about, to getting a whole expose. You thought you were a mastermind 20 steps ahead of everyone else. If Fatal Attraction wasn't scary Nate, then Fatal could do whatever he wanted, and you could still look like a good guy as Nate, but that whole plan was terrible. Considering you were doing so many bad things, people thought you were good at staying anonymous, but you were probably the easiest person to find. You got in one argument on 4chan over Ripper, and decided to post your entire address. Yes, this is where you lived. You posted your zip code when you were posting Screambook on Reddit. It's honestly crazy to me how massive of a failure one could be. You would write about Antichrist way too much, knowing exactly where to find the illegal mixtape, almost as if you were telling people where they should go to find it. After Kaya posted her video, you got mad and said that you didn't make Antichrist, claiming a Wilgris made it. When then asked in personal messages by someone who will remain unnamed, you said that it was Ripper who made Antichrist. You made both of those statements within the same couple days. Everyone finds you so disgusting that even those who were your closest friends online are now talking about you like the weirdo you are. To Nathan and Jim, as I'll call you here, this video does not doxx you. Everything here was obtained legally and from public sources. Falsely strike the video for privacy reasons, and it will be re-uploaded less generously censored than it currently is. Sorry for the wait everyone. This was a long process, so thank you for your patience. The next video should also be another important one, but on more of an own topic. Thank you KRT Chop, Beneath the Iceberg, Lando X, Spinling, and Brendan Reviews for your help with this video, and being great behind the scenes.